Hello and welcome to my latest video. Now this video, career video, features the Pennsylvania Terror George Cole, a tough middleweight contender who mixed in really tough company and was a very capable fighter. As you can see, had a massive career, of over 180 fights. And in that time, as you'll see from his main opponents, didn't hang shy. So let us begin his major opponents on slide 1. So George Cole has a 7-fight series with Philadelphia Jack O'Brien. Now, he did not win any of those fights against the all-time great former light heavyweight champion, but still 7-fight series against him. He then does go to winning ways. He beats former coloured champion Bobby Dobbs and former coloured middleweight champion Joe Butler before twice fighting the Baltimore Demon, young Peter Jackson. Now, George Cole scores 1 win and 1 draw from those 2 fights. He then fights Barbados Joe Walcott on 3 occasions, suffering 3 defeats, before having a trilogy, against former welterweight champion Dixie Kidd, aka Aaron Brown. Good morning, Marty. Good to see you, buddy. George Cole wins 2 of those with 1 loss from the trilogy. Cole then has a 4-fight series against Hall of Fame heavyweight Joe Jeanette, scoring 1 win with 3 losses and no draws. And George Cole also has a trilogy against Jack Blackburn, the great defensive fighter, scoring 1 win with 2 losses and no draws. He's already done a huge amount of work there. 7 fights with Jack O'Brien, a trilogy with Barbados Walcott and Dixie Kidd and Jack Blackburn, a 4-fight series with Jeanette. There's already equivalent to 2 modern Hall of Famers' careers in major name fights right there. He then also fights and defeats former heavyweight puncher Joe Goddard, before also holding singular wins first over former pound-for-pound rated and capable contender Charlie McKeever, and then he also beats the loop puncher Dave Holly in a singular fight. George Cole has a 5-fight series with Charlie Johnson, scoring 2 wins with 3 losses and no draws. He also has 2 fights with Kid Carter, winning 1 and losing 1, and ditto the same with Jimmy Handler. He also scores 1 win and 1 loss from 2 fights. George Cole ends his first slide fighting Ed Denfas, 3 occasions, scoring 3 wins from 3. So, George Cole has done a lot there. The win-loss amounts are skewered by Walcott and O'Brien, where he suffered 10 defeats, but he also defeated Bobby Dobbs, Joe Butler, young Peter Jackson, Dixie Kidd, Joe Jeanette, Jack Blackburn, Joe Goddard, Charlie McKeever, Dave Holly, etc. So he's also scored a lot of great wins on there as well. So going on to slide 2 for George Cole, he fights and beats Jack Bonner in a singular fight before twice defeating contender Al Weinig. He then fights heavyweight Black Bill on 2 occasions, scoring 1 win, 1 loss and no draw, and he twice draws to capable contender Mike Schreck. Next up is former middleweight contender Larry Temple, and George Cole fights him on 2 occasions, scoring 1 win and 1 draw, and then he has another trilogy, this time against contender Billy Stift, scoring 1 win with 2 draws. He then has one of his main rivals was a contender called Jack Williams. George Cole has 9 fights against Jack Williams, scoring 5 wins, 1 loss and 3 draw. He also scores a singular win over Cy Flynn before fighting a trilogy against heavyweight Maurice Harris, scoring 2 wins and 1 draw. The final name on here is a 4-fight series with former contender and well-travelled, as in for who's who, Jack Sullivan, in which George Cole scored no wins, 3 losses and 1 draw. So that is due, not the largest amount of slides in the world, but when you look at the amount of fights on it, you've got 10 fights against O'Brien and Walcott alone, plus other trilogies like Blackburn, Dixie Kidd. On this slide you've got the 9-fight series with Jack Williams. You've got another trilogy with Billy Stift, 4-fight series with Jack Twin Sullivan. So 2 slides, but a lot of fights on them. So there are 68 major fights highlighted there for George Cole. He's scored 31 wins with 26 losses and 10 draws. Again, 10 of those 26 losses are to 2 names alone, those 2 all-time greats, Joe Walcott and Jack O'Brien. So going on to KOs and rounds boxed, George Cole scored 39 knockouts in his career. He scored 17 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and he also scored 6 first round wins. Now, he scored no KOs against champions, Hall of Famers or pound for pounders, and George Cole, as a solid pre-rating era fighter, scored no KOs over rated opponents. But in rounds boxed, he fought well over 1,000 rounds at 1,227. Now, George Cole never had a title fight, so he fought 0 title fight rounds, and he fought totals of 136 rounds against champions, 136 rounds against Hall of Famers, and 160 rounds against pound for pound fighters. George Cole, of course, with no rated opponents, fought no rounds against top 10 fighters, top 3 fighters, or ring champions. So going on to the slide against champions, okay, George Cole had 21 fights against champions with a record of 6 wins, 14 loss and 1 draw. He beat 5 individual champions. They were Bobby Dobbs, Joe Butler, Young Peter Jackson, Dixie Kidd and Joe Jeanette, and he scored 0 knockouts against champions, so knocked out none individually. So going on to the Hall of Fame slide, okay, George Cole has 21 fights against Hall of Famers with a record of 5 wins, 16 losses and no draws. He defeated 3 Hall of Famers, 1 Jack Blackburn, 2nd Dixie Kidd, and then of course Joe Jeanette. And again, George Cole scored 0 knockouts over Hall of Famers individually. And going on to the pound for pound slide, okay, George Cole has his largest tally, 25 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 9 wins, 16 loss and no draw. He defeated 7 individual pound for pound fighters. They were Jack Blackburn, Bobby Dobbs, Joe Goddard, Charlie McKeever, Dave Holly, Dixie Kidd and Joe Jeanette, and George Cole scored 0 knockouts over pound for pounders individually. So going on to rated opponents slide, George Cole fought no fights against rated opponents due to absence of rankings, so he had no fights against top 10 fighters, top 3 fighters or ring champions. Officially, he also defeated no rated fighters individually and scored knockouts over 0 rated fighters. But of course, had ratings been around, George Cole would have dozens of fights against rated opponents. So going on to title fight slide, as we know from the title fight rounds, he had no title fights. So he has no win, no loss, no draw, with no defences and no KOs. George Cole has no wins against top 10, top 3 or ring champions in title fights, nor any wins against champions, Hall of Famers and pound for pounders. So there is George Cole's title fight stats. Going on to the final slide, he was never given or awarded a belt, so George Cole captured no world titles, no lineal titles and no undisputed titles. George Cole was one of those tough contenders of the time, behind the colour wall. He would fight anybody. As you can see, he fought fighters who excelled from welterweight to heavyweight. Again, another fighter who would be willing to fight fighters heavily outweighed, sometimes outsized as well, or both. And he would pretty much fight anyone who would get in the ring, anything to earn that bread, to keep himself and his family going. I think George Cole is one of those underrated tough former contenders who should get more credit, because realistically, when you look at his resume buries many modern Hall of Famers by far, even in quality of wins, in most regards, but in overall opposition fought, he buries modern Hall of Famers. But because he was never a champion, to most people he gets 0 recognition, but of course to the boxing librarian, he gets all the recognition in the world for being a super tough contender who scored many good wins himself. So that is George Cole, the Pennsylvania Terror. Coming up later on my community page will be uploaded the slides covering my super middleweight 32-man tournament. I will then get to work and hopefully get the middleweight tournament out tomorrow, after which I will take a break from the tournaments and start doing fight cards for the different divisions. But there's George Cole. Also coming tomorrow, okay, will be not a career video, but will be a stat matchup, okay, between 2 all-time greats. Okay, so that stat matchup is coming tomorrow. So I'm the boxing librarian. Big shout out to Martin in the chat, buddy. Hope you're well. And I'm out for now.